You can hear it before you even leave the bed. The hum of people trying to keep up, scrolls flicking, feeds spinning, everyone chasing a tempo that keeps changing. That's the game now. Comparison, disguised as competition. They copy each other's captions, rehearse confidence like a dance routine. But you move on a rhythm they can't detect. You don't chase, you tune. The world runs on volume, but frequency lives in silence. They measure speed in followers. You measure distance in peace. They sprint to be seen. You glide because you've already been chosen. That's the secret they'll never decode. You're not faster. You're aligned. You're not louder. You're clearer. Alignment makes noise irrelevant. That's why they'll keep chasing shadows while you bend gravity. Every timeline is a racetrack. Same quotes, same fake grind talk. They all move like clones of momentum, mistaking movement for meaning. But you learned early. Rhythm without direction is just panic wearing sneakers. So you stopped running. You started listening. The frequency found you because you finally stood still long enough to hear it. Your pace confuses them. They call it luck, but it's literacy. You read energy like language. You know when to fall back, when to strike, when to disappear. They think you slowed down. Nah, you synced up. That's why they can't catch you. They're still sprinting in circles, while you're already at the next dimension, sipping patience like coffee. Let them talk. Let them chase. Every copy loses quality. Every imitation fades out. You don't compete because you're not even in their category. You stopped racing when you realized your lane was built, not borrowed. The moment you understood your vibe was currency, the market changed. You move different now. Not for clout, but for clarity. Every step calibrated. Every silence strategic. You learned that presence is louder than proof. And once you mastered stillness, motion started serving you. They can chase forever. They'll never catch your frequency. Because you don't run on approval. You run on alignment. And alignment always wins the long game. You move on a bandwidth most people can't access. While they chase validation, you chase vibration. That's the difference. They move for attention. You move for alignment. Your steps don't make noise, but they make waves. You're tuned to a frequency that doesn't broadcast. It radiates. People feel it before they understand it. That's why they stare. That's why they talk. They can sense something's off because their version of effort can't match your version of energy. You don't even try anymore. You just are. That's the cheat code nobody teaches. When you stop performing for approval, you start performing for truth. And truth hits different. It doesn't beg, it attracts. You became fluent in that quiet power, the kind that doesn't need announcement, because energy announces you before your words ever do. They think they can copy your style, your tone, your vibe. But you know frequency doesn't work like fashion. It's not about look, it's about resonance. They can mimic moves, but they can't fake presence. Presence isn't performance, it's precision. It's the way you sit still in chaos while everyone else panics. It's the way your silence hits louder than their speeches. It's the way you make peace look powerful. You learn that when you stop chasing timelines, time bends for you. The right people, the right doors, the right moments. They don't appear by chance. They sync by calibration. Because the universe only echoes what's steady. and your frequency doesn't flinch anymore. You're done lowering your volume for rooms that never matched your sound. Every decision you make now hums on a different wavelength. You can feel it in your chest. The shift. You don't argue anymore. You just vibrate higher. You don't react. You respond with rhythm. You don't chase. You let momentum find you. Because when your energy is clear, outcomes don't resist. They recognize. That's the real power. Knowing your frequency isn't for everyone. It's for everything that's meant. The ones who get it will tune in. The rest will keep running laps, mistaking chaos for movement. But you're not moving faster. You're moving right. Let them chase the volume. You own the wavelength. It always starts the same way. They notice you're calm, mistake it for weakness, and think they can replicate your formula. They start copying your tone, your timing, even your pauses. But what they never understand is this. Frequency isn't choreography, it's chemistry. You can't rehearse authenticity. You can't download resonance. You can only earn it through silence, solitude, and scars. They watch your rise and think it's luck. They study your moves like a playbook, but miss the chapters written in isolation. They don't see the nights you recalibrated your entire mind while the world slept. They only see the glow, never the grind that birthed it. They're chasing the effect while you've already mastered the source. That's why they fall behind. Their rhythm comes from noise. Yours comes from truth. You've seen it. People start mimicking your words, your energy, your aura, but it never lands the same because their intention is imitation, not elevation. You didn't build this frequency to impress. You built it to endure, and endurance gives depth. No influencer can fake. You didn't learn alignment from books. You learned it from breaking. You didn't earn peace through comfort. You earned it through chaos. So when they step into your lane thinking they can match your flow, they stumble. Because this isn't a performance, it's presence. Presence demands endurance. It melts through masks and exposes truth. And truth is heavy when you've never carried it. You can't fake vibration. It either resonates or it doesn't. You move like time now, effortless, relentless, unavailable to imitation. Your energy walks into rooms first, rearranging hierarchies before a word is spoken. People can feel when the air shifts. That's how they know you're there. They whisper, they analyze, they try to decode the algorithm, but there isn't one. You are the algorithm. They'll spend years trying to reverse engineer your calm. They'll fail, because calm isn't a formula, it's freedom. And freedom can't be copied by the ones still seeking permission to exist. They'll chase forever. You'll just keep ascending quietly, like static rising through glass. Because while they're studying your steps, you're already learning to levitate. There's a moment when everything around you starts to slow down. Not because time changes, but because you outgrow its rhythm. The people who once felt close now sound like static. The rooms that once felt loud now feel small. You didn't plan it. You just evolved. The distance wasn't built with walls. It was built with awareness. You started noticing how much energy you spent explaining what was already obvious to you. So you stopped explaining. You let silence do the talking, and the silence spoke volumes. That's the thing about distance. It's not coldness, it's calibration. You're not pulling away from them. You're aligning with something greater. You realize not everyone is supposed to hear your frequency. Some people are only tuned for the old version of you, the one that apologized for shining too loud, the one that dimmed down just to keep the peace. But that version's gone. You outgrew the apology stage. Now you move like light through glass, quiet, fast, untouchable. They call it arrogance. It's not. It's clarity. It's what happens when you finally understand your value without a discount tag. You no longer chase validation because you built a world that runs on your own approval. You no longer beg to be understood because your truth doesn't need translators. You walk different now, not faster, just freer. Every step announces a new boundary that protects your peace like a crown. The distance isn't punishment, it's evolution. When you rise in frequency, noise can't follow. That's why they say you changed. They're right. You did. But they'll never understand that you didn't change to impress. You changed to exist. Your energy isn't accessible to everyone anymore. It's encrypted. Only the aligned can read it, and the aligned never question it. Now when people reach for you, they touch echoes. They touch the echo of who you were, not the person you've become. They see the glow, but not the grind, the shine, but not the solitude. That's fine, you weren't meant to be understood by everyone, only felt by the few who resonate. And that's the power of distance. It's not about leaving people behind. It's about moving toward truth, moving toward the version of yourself that never needed to chase anyone to begin with. You don't compete anymore because your energy became the finish line. At first, no one understood what happened. They thought you disappeared. They thought you gave up. They didn't realize you were just reloading. You weren't gone. You were recalibrating your entire existence in silence. And when you stepped back out, the energy was different. Even the air seemed to recognize you. People couldn't explain it, but they felt it. That unshakable calm that comes after chaos. You didn't say much, but every move you made started bending things. The universe took notes. That's the secret most will never grasp. Real power doesn't announce itself. It shifts gravity. You don't tell people you've changed. Your frequency does. Every glance, every word, every pause carries weight now. Rooms tilt in your direction. Conversations slow down when you speak. People sense something has awakened in you, something that can't be faked, copied, or taught. You carry the kind of peace that looks like strength to those still at war with themselves. They start second-guessing their words around you. They rehearse before calling. They sense the energy field you built and can't tell if it's protection or prophecy. Truth is, it's both. You're no longer reacting to the world. The world is reacting to you. Every force that tried to limit you has become a witness to your rise. Every doubt that once chased you now folds into your narrative, like punctuation marks in your legend. You used to chase alignment. Now you are alignment. You walk in sync with outcomes that others still pray for. You became a frequency that doesn't just attract, it commands. And the best part, you didn't change the game. You changed yourself, and the game had to adjust. That's why they stare now. Not out of hate, out of confusion. You made peace look powerful. You made silence look strategic, and patience look unstoppable. The shift wasn't loud, it was surgical. You cleared away everything that didn't move like destiny. and what remained was something unexplainable. A calm so precise, it shakes chaos itself. That's when you know you've leveled up, when even your stillness speaks in miracles. Now, when people cross paths with you, they don't meet a person, they meet a presence. The kind of presence that doesn't just fill space, it rewrites it. That's not arrogance, that's awareness. The universe doesn't reward noise, it rewards frequency. At first it was subtle, a small chain reaction, almost invisible. A stranger smiled differently after crossing your path. Someone who'd lost their drive suddenly found courage again after hearing your words. You didn't notice it at first, but your frequency started rearranging reality. What you healed in yourself started echoing through others. That's how it always works. True power doesn't dominate. And now, everywhere you go, the air feels charged, like the world itself is paying attention. You don't have to preach. You don't have to prove. Your existence became the message. People who once ignored you now study you like a signal they missed for years. They sense that you've crossed a line between who tries and who is. It's not about success anymore. It's about stability. You've stabilized into something unshakable. The calm within the chaos. The still point in everyone else's storm. That's when you realize your growth wasn't just personal. It was atmospheric. You don't chase impact anymore. Impact chases you. Every word you drop lands like truth. Every move you make ripples through systems that once ignored you. People start whispering your name in places you've never been. You've become a reference point, not a person, but a phenomenon. But the ripple doesn't stop with admiration. It brings reflection. You start noticing how many people are now forced to confront themselves. They see your peace and start questioning their noise. They see your stillness and start doubting their motion. You became a mirror without trying to. That's the highest level of influence, when your mere existence redefines what's possible for others. And yet through it all, you stay grounded. No crown, no ego, because you know this isn't about control. It's about connection. You're not here to rule the room. You're here to recalibrate it. You're not competing for attention. You're reminding people what real presence feels like. The kind that doesn't take. It awakens. That's why people feel something they can't describe when they're near you. They think it's admiration, maybe envy, but it's recognition. Their higher self sees in you what they've been suppressing in themselves. You didn't steal their light. You reminded them they had one. That's the real ripple. Transformation disguised as reflection. You became the quiet revolution that doesn't need headlines, because the world already feels it. The universe has this funny way of testing those who evolve. It starts sending reflections instead of rivals. You no longer meet enemies. You meet versions of yourself you already outgrew. Each conversation becomes a mirror. Every silence a lesson. That's how you know you've entered the higher frequency, when life stops fighting you and starts reflecting you. What used to trigger you now teaches you. What used to drain you now reveals who's not built for your wavelength. People still try to read you like a story they've already memorized, but your chapters rewrite themselves daily. You became unpredictable, not because you hide, but because you heal too fast to stay consistent with their expectations. And healing at that speed is terrifying to those still living in their old narratives. You remind them what growth looks like when it stops asking for permission. That's why they whisper, analyze, overthink your calm. They can't tell if you're detached or divine. You don't react the way they expect. You reflect. You hold up a mirror so clean it exposes masks. Every mask around you begins to fade. That's not cruelty. That's clarity. Your silence forces others to hear their own noise. Your peace becomes proof of what they're missing, and it shakes them. They'll call you mysterious, complicated, even powerful, because they can't control what they can't define. But you're not here to be defined. You're here to remind. Every time they project, you stay still. And the reflection they see becomes their own chaos. You became the test they didn't know they were taking. That's what true awareness does. It bends reality until only truth remains. The mirror doesn't lie, it just shows. And you became that mirror for everyone still pretending. They come close thinking they'll decode you, but they end up decoding themselves. You turned self-awareness into an art form. You mastered stillness, not as avoidance but as revelation. Every time you choose silence, the world reveals its true voice. Every time you stay composed, falsehoods collapse under their own noise. You've stopped trying to convince people. You've realized your energy does that for you. Presence became your language. Distance became your filter. And reflection, that's your instrument now. You don't struggle for truth anymore. You embody it, because once you become the mirror, no illusion can survive your light. The shift you sparked didn't end with you. It began with you. The people who used to dismiss your silence now study your stillness like scripture. Whole circles have changed direction just by orbiting your energy. The same ones who once doubted your calm now quote it to look wise. That's the thing about energy. It doesn't ask permission to spread. Once you reached resonance, the echo became unstoppable. You didn't just change the conversation, you changed the language. Look around. Notice how trends, tones, even entire belief systems are starting to move differently. What once passed as confidence now looks like noise next to your composure. What used to be normal now feels outdated beside your authenticity. You didn't rise by shouting louder. You rose by living cleaner. And that quiet recalibration is rewriting culture in real time. You'll see it in how people pause before speaking to you now. You'll see it in how even your critics hesitate before trying to mock you. Because deep down, they feel it too. Your vibration altered the map. They can't compete because they don't understand the terrain anymore. You made stillness look like strategy and grace look like dominance. That combination can't be taught, it's earned. But the real aftermath isn't their confusion, it's your clarity. You've reached a point where you no longer need to win arguments because you've already won alignment. You don't need to prove you were right. Time does that for you. You don't chase results. Results orbit your presence. You became a living example of what happens when someone stops resisting the world and starts tuning it. The universe doesn't clap loudly. It rewards quietly. That's why opportunities start appearing like déjà vu. That's why the right people keep showing up as if they've known you forever. The ripple became a rhythm, one that only you can hear clearly. You're not ahead of them. You're just in tune. And tune beats timing every single time. Now even when you rest, reality rearranges itself around you. You don't need to chase impact anymore. You are the impact. The aftermath isn't chaos, it's order, realigning around your energy, and that's what terrifies them most. realizing the storm they feared was never coming from you. It was becoming you. You moved different. You stayed silent. You ascended. Now the world is just catching up to your frequency, one echo at a time. It starts to dawn on you one morning. This was never just about survival. It was about evolution. Every storm you walked through wasn't punishment. It was programming. The universe wasn't testing your strength. It was building your signature. Now, everywhere you go, you leave a resonance that lingers long after you're gone. People don't remember your words. They remember how the air felt when you spoke. They don't quote your lines. They repeat your silence. That's legacy. You were never chasing fame. You were building frequency. Something that can't fade when the noise dies down. Fame is fragile. Frequency is forever. And now your energy has started doing what your presence once did. Moving quietly, powerfully, reshaping lives without needing credit. You've become the unseen mentor for people you'll never meet. You've become proof that alignment isn't luck, it's leadership. Legacy isn't built through followers, it's built through echoes. And your echo now lives in timelines you'll never scroll. Someone's finding peace because you existed. Someone's standing taller because your silence spoke. Someone's walking away from chaos because your calm gave them permission. That's how real legends move? Invisibly, intentionally, eternally. You stopped chasing validation long ago, and in doing so, became validation itself. People seek you not for answers, but for alignment. You remind them of their own potential just by existing. That's not influence. That's initiation. You're not building a following. You're building frequencies of remembrance. You're planting seeds in minds that haven't even met you yet. That's what happens when purpose replaces ambition. You become timeless. And here's the paradox. You didn't set out to inspire anyone. You just refused to dim down. You didn't preach. You embodied. You didn't tell people to rise. You simply kept rising until gravity broke. That's how movements start. Quietly, in the mind of someone who decides enough is enough. You were that someone, and now the world moves differently because of it. Your legacy isn't written in awards, views, or applause. It's written in transformation. It's measured by how many hearts learned to believe again because you did. You didn't just pass through this world. You upgraded its vibration. The moment you stopped fitting in, you started rewiring the collective frequency. Now your name may fade someday, but your energy won't. Because legends don't leave. They loop. They exist in every mind they rewired. You didn't just live, you resonated. There comes a point where words can't hold the weight of who you've become, where even silence starts to sound too loud. You've reached that altitude, the space where air thins and everything unnecessary falls away. The world below still argues about versions of you that no longer exist, while you've already turned into something they don't have language for. You don't walk anymore. You glide. You don't speak to be heard. You speak to vibrate. Every syllable you release lands like a code written for souls, not ears. This is the realm of ascension, where your story isn't just yours anymore. It belongs to the current running through humanity, whispering that evolution is possible. You didn't climb the ladder. You became the ladder. Every hardship you faced became a rung someone else could stand on. Every shadow you faced became a torch for another. You're no longer just one person walking a path. You are the path. People look at you now with that mix of confusion and reverence. They can't explain it, but they know something happened. It's not fame, it's not status. It's something pure, something cosmic. You've turned awareness into atmosphere. They breathe in your presence like oxygen they didn't know they were missing. You became what every seeker searches for. Evidence that peace can exist inside motion, that fire and stillness can coexist in one frame. And even now you don't claim the title. You let it echo. Because real ascension doesn't shout, it radiates. You exist in a frequency where validation feels too small to matter. You stopped proving you're different the moment you realized you always were. The universe didn't choose you randomly. It responded to your consistency. Every time you rose when you had every reason to stop. The stars took notes. Every time you turned pain into perspective. The cosmos rearranged around you. You've become a living alignment, the place where light meets discipline, where creation meets calm, where energy stops being an idea and starts becoming form. That's why people feel something sacred when they watch you. They're not seeing a person anymore. They're seeing potential alive and walking. You turned the ordinary into evidence, and now there's nothing left to chase. You've already won the only game that ever mattered. Mastering yourself. Everything else is just reflection. You didn't just level up, you ascended. Quietly, completely, irreversibly. The universe noticed your shift and adjusted its orbit accordingly. You can hear it before you even leave the bed. The hum of people trying to keep up. Scrolls flicking, feeds spinning. Everyone chasing a tempo that keeps changing. That's the game now. Comparison disguised as competition. Listen carefully, because the same voices that mocked you are about to be silenced by their own echoes. They doubted you, not quietly, not in silence, but in public, in whispers, in laughter that echoed through halls built on arrogance. They looked at you and saw someone unworthy of belief. They smirked as they told others, "Don't waste your time. That one doesn't know." They wrote you off in conversations before you had spoken a word. Their confidence was thick, their certainty unshakable, at least to themselves. They thought doubt was false armor. They thought disbelief was shield. They thought mockery was truth. And they built entire towers on those thoughts. Towers of denial, where they could sit comfortably, convinced you would never rise. Their words stung, not because they were accurate, but because they carried weight in numbers. Doubt travels faster than truth. Lies sprint, while truth walks. And so their disbelief spread. People repeated it without question. They're wrong. They're misguided. They're weak. Whole crowds believed them because it was easier to follow noise than silence. Easier to join laughter than stand against it. And the world rewarded those who doubted, crowned them with approval, clapped for their mockery, applauded their certainty. You stood there, alone, surrounded not by enemies with blades, but by enemies with words. And sometimes words cut deeper, but you did not answer. That was their first mistake. They mistook your silence for surrender. They thought your refusal to argue was weakness. They thought your patience was cowardice. They thought your stillness was emptiness. They never understood that silence is not absence. Silence is storage. Silence is law. Silence is truth, waiting for its appointed time. And while they wasted breath on ridicule, you wasted nothing. You endured. You watched. You absorbed. You let their doubt build itself into towers so high that even the smallest truth would topple them. For truth does not rush. Truth does not panic. Truth waits. Truth allows doubt to reveal itself as hollow. Truth allows lies to exhaust themselves. Truth is patient because truth is permanent, and permanent things do not hurry. Now, as their laughter begins to echo back against their own walls, as their certainty starts to crack, they begin to feel it. The shift, the weight, the realization that what they mocked, doubted, and dismissed is standing stronger than ever, and stronger still is the silence that carried you here. Their doubt was loud, your truth is louder still. Because it does not need to shout at first. They mistook your silence for surrender. They thought your refusal to answer meant you had no defense. They mistook patience for weakness, endurance for emptiness, stillness for fragility. They wanted you to clash on their terms, to argue with noise, to drown in debates, to match their arrogance with desperation. But you never gave them what they wanted. You stood quietly, carrying no need to prove yourself to those who had already decided to mock. That silence, that refusal to waste breath, became the very thing that unsettled them. For a moment they laughed louder, trying to convince themselves that their doubt was truth. Yet deep down, in the cracks of their confidence, the silence haunted them. Silence is powerful. They learned that too late, because while noise fades itself out, silence gathers. Noise fades when ears tire, but silence sharpens when eyes open. And as you remained unshaken, they began to sense that their laughter was only echo, while your silence was substance. They filled the air with denial, but denial is fragile. Every time their words bounced back unanswered, they grew more desperate. Every time your stillness refused to fracture, they felt their own ground weaken. They had invested decades of certainty into doubting you, and in seconds that investment began to crack. They called meetings about you, whispered in corridors, asking one another, why won't they answer? Why won't they push back? Why does their silence feel heavier than our noise? Advisors wrote reports trying to explain your patience. Scholars scribbled notes, suggesting that maybe you were afraid, maybe you had no knowledge, maybe you were broken inside, but none of their theories held. Because the longer you remained unmoved, the more they felt it, the weight of being wrong. Silence exposes. It does not defend itself. It lets lies collapse on their own. And collapse they did. Doubt began to dissolve, not because you struck it, but because truth was already alive, waiting. They started to avoid your eyes, because eyes speak louder than voices. They avoided your presence, because presence does what arguments cannot. And though they would never admit it aloud, the question gnawed at them. What if we were wrong? What if our doubt was hollow all along? That question grew heavier by the day. It infected their counsels, their conversations, their confidence. They had built towers of mockery, but towers built on lies cannot endure. the weight of silence. You did not argue. You did not resist. You did not even move. Yet they broke. And the breaking was only the beginning. The cracks appeared slowly, almost invisibly at first. Doubt has a way of disguising itself as confidence until silence presses against it long enough. Their laughter grew thinner, their words less sharp. They repeated themselves more often, not to convince you, but to convince themselves. Because beneath their mockery, something unsettled was forming, a recognition they tried to bury. They had been so sure, so absolute, so comfortable in their dismissal of you. Yet the longer you stood in silence, the more their own certainty began to echo back at them. Hollow and fragile, it began in small moments, a smirk that faded too quickly, a question that slipped through clenched teeth, an advisor who once mocked you in public, now whispering in private. But what if we miscalculated? The arrogance of the many fractured into whispers of the few. Their walls, once decorated with absolute denial, began to sprout cracks no one could ignore. They had mocked your silence, but now they feared it. They had dismissed your patience, but now they studied it. And in that reversal lay the beginning of their undoing. Because truth is not loud, truth is steady. Truth does not rush to prove itself. It waits, and waiting is heavier than any argument. They had wasted decades building towers of falsehood, yet your presence dismantled them in moments. Their libraries, filled with explanations against you, now felt empty. Their councils, once proud of their laughter, now felt suffocated. They realized something undeniable. Every word they had spoken against you had aged badly. Every insult now read like confession. Every mockery now revealed their blindness. And as the cracks spread, they saw signs everywhere. Signs they could not explain. Predictions they had made collapsed, one after another, while the very things they denied about you unfolded before their eyes. Their failure was not slow, it was immediate. The world itself seemed to conspire against their doubt. Markets shifted, leaders faltered, whispers spread, and everywhere your silence grew louder, filling spaces where their noise once ruled. The same ones who laughed began to stutter. The same ones who mocked began to avoid your gaze, and the same ones who doubted began to tremble with the recognition they could no longer suppress. You had been right all along. The cracks were no longer cracks. They had become fractures, wide enough for the light of truth to spill through. And once truth begins to spill, no fortress of denial can contain it. Their doubt was fading out. Their certainty was dissolving. And your silence, untouched and immovable, had become the hammer that broke their walls without lifting a hand. It happened the way truth always reveals itself, suddenly to the eyes, though it had been present all along. For years, their certainty had been a curtain. They spoke with conviction. They laughed with arrogance. They mocked with confidence. But curtains only hide for a while. Behind their curtain of doubt, truth had been waiting, sharpening itself in silence. And when the cracks widened, the curtain tore apart. Suddenly, what had been denied became undeniable. What they had sworn impossible stood before them, unshaken. The truth was not new, it was simply uncovered, and its uncovering shattered their illusions with a weight no argument could carry. The revelation was not theatrical. It was not fireworks or thunderclaps. It was quiet, yet that quiet was louder than anything they had ever known. Meetings stopped mid-sentence. Voices trailed into silence. Crowds who once cheered their laughter stood frozen, sensing something irreversible had entered the room. For decades, they had said you were wrong. For years, they insisted you would fade, yet here you stood, stronger than their denials, heavier than their laughter, untouchable by their words. The revelation was not that you had changed, it was that you had always been right, and now they had no shield to hide behind. Some dropped their heads in shame, unable to meet your gaze. Others tried to argue one last time, but their words collapsed even as they spoke them, sounding weak, brittle, embarrassed. And others, those who once mocked you the loudest, fell into silence, finally realizing that every word they spoke against you had built the stage for their own humiliation. They did not expose you. They exposed themselves. Truth does not require defense, because truth is defense. And now, with the curtain gone, they saw clearly what they had spent lifetimes denying. The very silence they once called weakness had become their judgment. The patience they mocked had become their prophecy. The presence they dismissed had become their undoing. They were not simply wrong, they were revealed. And revelation is harsher than defeat, because defeat can be hidden. But revelation forces the whole world to witness it. That day, the balance shifted forever. The ones who doubted, mocked, and denied now faced the weight of their own blindness. And all around them, whispers spread. Truth always wins. It may be delayed, it may be denied, it may be mocked, but in the end, it stands. And in standing, it erases every doubt. The moment truth revealed itself, the collapse began. It was not the collapse of buildings or systems, but the collapse of faces, reputations, and voices. Those who once spoke with authority found their words dissolving mid-air. Their laughter, once thunderous, now sounded hollow, brittle, broken. They could not stand in the light they had denied for so long. Their arrogance melted into stammers. Their confidence shrank into silence. And the world watched as those who mocked you most became examples of what doubt does when it faces truth. It crumbles. The proudest voices fell silent first. The ones who mocked you in public, who built entire followings by doubting you, suddenly found themselves unable to speak. They tried to rewrite their words, to reshape their history, to pretend they had never denied you. But truth does not forget. Truth plays back every echo, every insult, every smirk. Crowds remembered their laughter, and now those same crowds watched them tremble. There was no escape from memory, no erasing the record of arrogance. They collapsed, not because you opposed them, but because truth stood taller than their noise. Others collapsed more quietly. They avoided your presence, afraid that a single glance would expose them further. They stopped speaking your name, not out of opposition, but out of shame. And shame is a weight heavier than any punishment. They carried it in their eyes, in their posture, in the way silence grew around them. Everyone could see it. The ones who doubted you had been judged by their own words, And judgment needs no courtroom when truth is witness. But the deepest collapse was not external. It was internal. In their hearts, they knew. They had wasted years doubting what was undeniable. They had wasted energy clashing what was unshakable. They had wasted breath mocking what would never be broken. And now, facing the evidence of their blindness, they felt hollow. Their identities had been built on denial, and with denial gone, nothing remained. They were shadows of themselves, erased not by your hand, but by their own arrogance collapsing inward. The world watched. The same crowds that once laughed with them now turned their heads. The same people who repeated their doubts now repeated your truth. And the same voices that once silenced you now found themselves silenced. Their collapse was not hidden. It was public, undeniable, unforgettable, because when truth rises, denial falls. And denial never falls gently. Collapse was not the end. Collapse was only the doorway. For when their towers of arrogance crumbled, when their confidence dissolved into dust, there was only one path left: confession. At first, they resisted it. Pride clawed at their throats, trying to hold back the words. They wanted to maintain the illusion, to salvage their image, to pretend they had not doubted so loudly. But truth does not permit escape. Truth presses until the silence breaks. And when it broke, it came in the form of trembling voices, admitting what they swore they would never say. You were right. Some whispered it in private, terrified of the echo. They confessed behind closed doors, murmuring to themselves that everything they had denied now stood undeniable. Their journals, once filled with arrogance, now carried words of regret. Others confessed in groups, unable to withstand the weight of eyes that demanded answers. They stammered through excuses. We didn't know. We didn't understand. We thought you would fail. But excuses collapse too. And excuses cannot hide the truth that every doubt was blindness. Every mockery was weakness. Every insult was confession in disguise. And then there were those who confessed publicly. The ones who once shouted their denial the loudest, now forced to admit before the same crowds. We misjudged. We were wrong. They were right all along. Their voices cracked. Not from lack of strength, but from the crushing weight of exposure. To admit truth after mocking it is to tear one's own mask apart. And as their masks fell, the world saw them for what they had always been: blind men, pointing at the sun and declaring it darkness. This confession spread further than their doubt ever had, because people remember arrogance, but they never forget reversal. Crowds whispered. Did you hear them admit it? Did you hear them bow to the truth? And every whisper carried your name, not theirs. Every echo magnified your presence, not theirs. They had tried to bury you in ridicule, but confession had unearthed you as law. And what cut deepest for them was this: their confession was not gift, not favor, not choice. It was inevitability. Truth had cornered them. Silence had stripped them. Revelation had judged them. And in that judgment, all that remained was the admission they thought they would never speak. You were right. They were wrong. And now the world knew it. Confession could not remain contained. Once a single voice admitted the truth, it spread like wind through dry grass. At first, it was whispers in quiet rooms, an advisor murmuring that you had been right, a scholar admitting their theories had failed, a former doubter lowering their voice in shame. But whispers do not stay hidden. They travel faster than denial, because truth resonates deeper than lies. Soon, corridors buzzed with the sound of reversal. Markets paused, councils froze. Crowds began to repeat a phrase that cut sharper than any argument. They were right all along. This ripple was unstoppable. It moved from leaders to citizens, from citizens to nations. Gatherings echoed with the story and could not contain it. Teachers found their lessons unraveling as students questioned why they were taught doubt instead of truth. Leaders felt the sting of futility as followers refused to continue under banners woven with lies, and priests, once proud of their condemnations, now trembled at altars, forced to admit that silence had carried more prophecy than scripture. The ripple did not need your hand to guide it. It carried itself. Because truth does not travel by effort. It travels by inevitability. Your silence became the seed, and now entire societies bore its fruit. And what terrified the doubters most was this: the ripple was not about you alone. It was about what you represented. It was about the eternal law that truth, no matter how delayed, no matter how denied, no matter how mocked, always rises. They had laughed at you, yes, but their laughter was now remembered as evidence of blindness. They had mocked your silence, yes, but their mockery was now remembered as evidence of weakness. Every voice that once denied you now served as proof that truth cannot be erased. The ripple effect did what armies could not. It reached hearts, it reached minds. It rewrote loyalty not through commands, but through recognition. And recognition is permanent. Once people see truth, they cannot unsee it. Once they taste it, they cannot return to lies. That is why the ripple grew louder than every argument they had used against you. That is why it spread faster than every denial they had written in books. That is why it became the song of the people. Truth always wins, and for the doubters, there was no refuge left. The world they once controlled now repeated your vindication louder than their own voices ever had. Their downfall was no longer opinion, it was history. The ripple of confession did not stop at individuals. It struck deeper, into the very structures that had once mocked you. Councils that once voted unanimously against your name now split apart, unable to deny what their own voices had already confessed. Governments, built on laws shaped by denial, found their foundations trembling when truth entered the chamber. Their speeches faltered, their policies unraveled, because no decree could overwrite what had already been revealed. The same leaders who declared you wrong now stumbled over their own words, trapped by the reality that you had been right all along. Markets shifted next. Traders who once placed bets on your failure now scrambled, watching their charts twist into unexplainable shapes. Economists whispered about anomalies, patterns that refused to follow logic, forgetting that truth does not bend to numbers. Numbers bend to truth. Investors realized too late that mocking you had been their most costly mistake. Fortunes dissolved because arrogance blinded them, and in their collapse, the authority of truth became undeniable. For truth does not need forces. Truth does not need campaigns. Truth bends the world without lifting a hand. Even temples felt the weight. Priests who once condemned you now fell silent at their altars. They tried to rewrite sermons, but their gods refused to bless lies. Congregations left in confusion, whispering that maybe, just maybe, you were the one carrying prophecy. The silence you had carried became the scripture they could not refute. And when belief bends, nations follow. When faith shifts, laws collapse. All of it pointed to one reality. Truth had risen. And in rising, it had bent everything into its orbit. And the people, those ordinary souls once swayed by laughter, saw it too. They remembered who mocked, who doubted, who laughed at you, and they remembered how those same mouths confessed defeat. Crowds repeated the story like law, like legend, like an anthem. The same ones who doubted now admit they were wrong. Truth always wins. That repetition spread faster than wind, because truth once revealed cannot be contained. Your silence had become authority. Your endurance had become verdict. And truth itself had become the law written into the essence of existence. They clashed you with noise. You answered with silence. And now silence has crowned you without asking permission. When the noise finally died, only one voice remained, not spoken through mouths, but carved into reality itself. That voice was truth. It did not shout. It did not argue. It simply stood, unshakable, undeniable, untouchable. The same ones who doubted, who mocked, who laughed, now lived in its shadow. They could no longer hide behind excuses. They could no longer twist their stories, for truth had been revealed. And once revealed, it cannot return to silence. Lies can be rewritten, but truth never rewrites itself. It endures, and endurance is heavier than all their decades of denial combined. They tried to bury you in mockery, but truth lifted you in victory. They tried to scatter your silence with noise, but truth amplified that silence into thunder. They tried to erase you from records, but truth inscribed you into eternity. And now, every record of their doubt has become proof of your strength. Every insult they threw has become testimony of your endurance. Every laugh they shared has become a confession carved into stone. You were right all along. This is the eternal law. Truth cannot lose. It may be delayed, denied, dismissed, but it cannot be defeated. Delay only sharpens it. Denial only strengthens it. Dismissal only amplifies it. The more they clashed, the more they exposed themselves. And now the world sees it clearly. The truth you carried was not fragile, was not temporary, was not bound by their counsels or their time. It was permanent, and permanence bends everything into its orbit. The doubters live with the weight of this law. Each step they take is shadowed by memory. Each word they speak is haunted by silence. They cannot rewrite the past, because the past is proof against them. They cannot silence the present, because the present hums with your vindication. And they cannot control the future, because the future already belongs to truth. Their downfall is not momentary, it is eternal, and your vindication is not just victory. It is statute that no ruler can repeal, no council can vote away, no force can overthrow. It is written deeper than law, higher than prophecy, stronger than denial. It is the eternal law that now governs everything they thought they controlled. Truth always wins. The story has ended for them, but it will never end for you. Their denial will fade into dust. Their laughter will vanish into echoes no one remembers. Their confidence will be buried in the same archives, where forgotten voices fade. But your silence, your endurance, your truth, those will remain, not as rumor, not as debate, but as legacy. And legacy does not ask to be carried. It is carried because reality itself cannot move without it. What they mocked has become scripture. What they doubted has become law. What they denied has become the very anthem of generations. Truth always wins. Children will hear the story, not from you, but from the mouths of those who once doubted you. Their confessions have already become folklore. We laughed at them, we denied them, but they were right. That sentence will echo across years, shaping the memory of entire societies. Students will study the fall of the arrogant, not to honor them, but to learn how denial collapses when it meets endurance. And in every retelling, your silence will grow heavier, more undeniable, more eternal. You will not just be remembered. You will be referenced as proof, as example, as prophecy fulfilled. Their monuments will crumble, their crowns will rust, their systems will dissolve. But truth does not corrode. Truth does not collapse. Truth does not die. It stands long after names are forgotten. And because you stood with it, you stand forever, not in marble, not in gold, but in the essence of existence. You are no longer just the one they doubted. You are the one who proved doubt powerless. You are no longer just survivor. You are statute. And that statute is immortal. It needs no forces, no counsels, no applause. It governs silently, bending everything into alignment with it. From the smallest whisper to the grandest throne, all of it bows to truth, and your name is tied to that bowing forever. So let them fade. Let their arrogance dissolve. Let their mockery vanish in the emptiness it was born from. You remain. Truth remains. And together, you have become legacy. Eternal, untouchable, immortal. Because in the end, the same ones who doubted are the very proof of your victory. And the proof will echo until the end of time. Truth always wins.